Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Tonight we're going to have another episode of the Spy Files, and we were covering all of these Scientology documents, internal documents from the spy organization, the Office of Special Affairs, that's located in Hollywood. The headquarters, OSA, or the Office of Special Affairs International, is located in Hollywood. And the files that we're covering are between this office and the headquarters of Scientology, the international base, where the International Management is located for all of Scientology internationally. This was back in 2006. And we had to stop that in the last few episodes because we are covering spy operations that are happening currently right now in 2023. So we're going to get back to these other documents now that that's sort of, playing out. And so the document that we're going to cover today is from May 8th, 2006. And what was happening at this time, just to recap, was that my wife and I had escaped from the INT base, the Scientology INT base, in January of 2005. And we had now, we'd moved to Kansas City initially. And as of the end of 2005, we had moved back to Los Angeles and we were living in Burbank, California. And I had a company that did audiovisual, hardware design and installation. And my wife was working at a company that was managing farmers markets in the Los Angeles area. And so that catches it up to right now. So let's get right into the document. I'm trying a new format here for these, for the people that are watching this on YouTube. Some people are listening to this on a podcast, but we're showing the documents on the YouTube feed of this, and we're just doing it a different way. So let's bring up this first document. Okay, so it says, Eyes Only, May 8th, 2006. Mark and Claire Headley. And then it's also talking about another person that had also escaped, and they're listing him here, and I'm not listing him here because they're not involved in any of this anymore. Contact was made with Claire Headley today regarding arranging getting a space in the farmers market that she runs. The call produced the following information. So OSA had somebody call and pretend that they were a farmers market vendor that would like to participate in one of the markets, and then they got the whole spiel. A lot of this is redacted because there's a lot of banking and company and detailed information, internal company information. They really dug up as much as they could. This is from a phone call, but in some of the subsequent documents, you'll see how deep dive they do on these things. So it continues. The email address that Claire uses for the farmers market business is blank. The name of the company that she works for is blank farmers market. They have a website at blank. In checking, the site was registered by Mark Headley in February 2006 through GoDaddy Software Incorporated. The contact information on the blank website is blank, 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 blank. This address is a mail drop and phone number goes to the Headley's home. Blank Farmers Markets LLC was registered with the Division of Corporations on 9 February 2006 by a Mitchell Eisner of Redding, California. This is of interest as he is also listed as having set up Mark's other company, Blank, in March 2006. Note that Mode also has a mailbox drop at the same address as given above for the farmers market, but with a box number, blah, blah, blah. So different box number. Both the farmers market and Mode companies come up with Blank as the registered agent as an address of Blank, Redding, California, 96003. And then it basically, they deep dive into the guy that set up these companies for us, which we got as a recommendation for somebody else. And they basically dug up a whole bunch of dirt on the person that just set up the corporations and the LLCs or whatever they were. The articles found on this state was that he was an accountant after giving a ton of dirt on the guy. Public record shows that he and his wife, Blank, living in Redding, California. His wife is listed as a salesperson and the employee of a real estate broker. blank, 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 blank. Claire said she is the market coordinator and on-site manager. She will be out there at the venues they set up in charge. She said that the manager and the owner is blank. Blank name does not show up anywhere in records found so far. Claire gave the schedule for the upcoming farmers markets, and then it just has all the different dates and the locations. It goes through a bunch of different markets and a bunch of different places with all the detailed costs and what times and how big this market space is. And then it says, Claire faxed the caller the forms that she got filled out to rent a space. These same forms can also be gotten off their website. And then it says, when the caller said he was located in North Glendale, Claire mentioned that she lived in that area previously. She said she went to school in England and she moved to the Glendale area. She said her husband is American and he keeps trying to get her to lose her accent. And that's the end of the document. So these guys are basically pretending to be clients of ours and then contacting us just so they can get as much information as they can on what Claire and myself are doing. And this is after we had escaped from working there for 15 years at $45 a week at 120, about an average of 100 to 120 hours a week on average. And they are concerned about everything that we're doing because I'm posting stories that of things that had happened at the base that Scientology doesn't want you to know about, which now we're covering a lot of these stories and more in detail, but they're also covered in my book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology. And essentially, Scientology wants to dig up dirt and create as much leverage as they can to threaten people that are exposing Scientology. And this is a day, and I'm only one person. There's hundreds and hundreds of these files on other people and all the things that they're doing against them. And we're going to slowly but surely, we're going to try to get to as many of these as we can. But the other thing that I wanted to say was we are now doing the Spy Files and the Scientology stories as podcasts as well. So if you like to listen to podcasts in the car or at work or to go to sleep at night or whatever, you can just search for Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology on wherever you get your podcasts. And we have all these coming out there. The Spy Files and the Scientology stories, the interviews that we're doing with ex-Sea Org members and ex-Scientology members. Okay, so that's that document. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, because that one was so short, is we're going to do a document that was sent up 2 days later. And now this document is very telling because this shows how Scientology operates in terms of their policy of disconnection. When someone escapes from Scientology or someone leaves Scientology and says, I don't want to do this anymore, they do what's called a declare, and they declare this person a suppressive person. And when they do that, anybody that's still in Scientology is told to disconnect from that person. And what this does is it cuts off the information flow between Scientologists and ex-Scientologists so that the disaffection doesn't spread amongst the current members, and they start comparing notes, and then they go, hey, they did the same thing to me. And then that's why they want to disconnect former members so much and talk so much trash about them, so they can cut the information flow and cut that connection. And you'll see they everything is geared towards a disconnection or a cut of a communication line or a connection between members. And they diagram this in one of these documents that we're just about to go through. So I'm going to put this up right now. I don't know why this one is, the background is like this and the other one was white, and it depends on how you redact it, how it does it. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. So sorry if that's disconcerting for you that the background is black and the text is white. Some people like it that way. Okay, so this document is from 10 May 2006. And I'm just actually about to have a birthday party, and they're bringing in people that are my friends that are, used to work at the international headquarters that are now have escaped, or they left, or they routed out, or whatever. And they're, by each person, this document analyzes each person and then sort of summarizes why this person has given them information which would lead to identify this person that's posting on the internet as blown for good, or BFG as they call him. And they're still sort of trying to convince David Miscavige that this person that's posting these Scientology int base stories is Mark Headley, and they haven't totally convinced him of that. So a lot of these documents are sort of trying to sell that premise that I am this person known as Blown for Good, which I was the entire time. So this is from 10 May 2006, analysis of key MH-CH connections. MH and CH is Mark Headley and Claire Headley. Below is the basic data on the key people recently connected with MH and CH. These terminals, Matt, Suzette, Eric, Adam, and Wolfie, can all be gotten to cut whatever lines to Mark and Claire they have by being confronted with the facts on what they are doing, or the fact that they are not moving, and given an R factor from IJC that continued connection to them will prevent them from getting through their steps. Okay, so that thing is jam-packed with Scientology's jargon nonsense. So essentially, all of these people can be gotten to cut lines to us by being confronted with a reality factor, like saying, this is the state of things, and if you don't disconnect this person, this R factor, this reality factor from the international justice chief, means that these people will not be able to speak to their family again, or to be in good standing with Scientology again, if they continue to be connected to Mark and Claire Headley. Adam, Matt, and Eric, since they are, I'll start that again. Adam, Matt, and Eric, since they are, it's just a typo, since they are all claiming to be intent on getting back into good standing, are also possible resources, or at least sources of data, since they do still have some contact with the Headleys. So this is very interesting. So even though they're not supposed to be connected to suppressives, they're floating the idea, well, these guys are connected with them, so they can keep providing info if we want. Okay, and then it says that it starts detailing out. So Matt Blank lives in Sherman Oaks alone, used to live at Mark and Claire's house, but moved out several weeks ago. He works at Blank in Los Angeles. He is in comm, that just means in communication with, in touch with. He is in comm with Kirsten. Kirsten is the director of internal security affairs at the Office of Special Affairs International, and she is responsible for keeping track of SPs. That's her job, to keep track of ex-SO members or ex-Scientologists and SP journalists or attackers. It's her job to make them be quiet and to shut them down. Okay, he works at Blank in LA. He is in comm with Kirsten, says he wants to get through his steps this year. He has done his step B. That's when you do these A to E steps to get back into Scientology. They're numbered A, B, C, D. So step B is to do a write-up and say, I did a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have done, and I want to get back in good standing. He has done his step B write-up, has started on a men's project, but has not yet started paying on his freeloader debt. Okay, the freeloader debt is a debt that Scientology sends you that says you owe them all this money for Scientology courses they require you to do while you're in the employ or under contract in a staff member situation or a Sea Org member situation. And when you leave, they bill you for that. So they sent, in one of the earlier videos, we covered when they sent us our freeloader debt, and it was, I think it was $150 something thousand between Claire and I. has started on an immense project, but has not yet started paying on his freeloader debt, but did call Kirsten last week to find out how exactly to make out the checks. Okay, so I don't think this guy ever paid his freeloader debt. Matt is the one who told Kirsten on March 29th that BFG had to be Mark after Kirsten had given him a few clues. Specifically, R.D. Willis was a video professional that worked for Scientology on these international events that we held between 7 and 10 times a year all over the world. And R.D. Willis he rented video equipment to Golden Era Productions, and then he operated some of that equipment in the broadcast truck that would edit and mix and produce and sometimes satellite uplink these events that we did. R.D. Willis called Matt in January to tell him that Laxton had dropped his body. Okay, that is a gentleman by the name of Steve Laxton, who was a very talented video director, and he passed away. Scientology are seriously bizarre. They refer to someone passing away as dropping the body. So he said R.D. Willis called Matt in January to tell him Laxton had dropped his body. During this call, R.D. told him Golden Era Productions was likely going HD. Up until this point, all of their events had been produced, edited, and finalized, mastered in a resolution that was called SD, or standard definition. It's a low quality video. And this guy told Matt used to work at the base with me, and we used to work in the video production area. And this guy, who was still working for Golden Era Productions, was giving Matt information, and he told him that Gold was going to upgrade to high definition in their video format. Matt said he only told one person this, and that was Mark H. About 3 weeks earlier, the BFG posting about HD was March 5th. So they're lining up some info that I had gotten from Matt, who had gotten it from RD, who was working for Golden Era, and I posted it on the internet, which I was constantly being fed information by multiple sources of people that were in touch or doing something at Golden Era. And that's how my posts were seemingly, to them, very relevant, and it appeared that they had a leak or many leaks, because a lot of this information was fresh intel that was ending up on the internet. Okay, and then the other thing says cage fighting. Mark is a major cage fighting fan and watches it monthly, and this is something that BFG posted about. Okay, when they say cage fighting, they're so ridiculous. They're talking about UFC MMA, which I would watch basically as soon as I escaped the Sea Org. I found this UFC Ultimate Fighter, and Joe Rogan was the commentator and all this, and I've watched it ever since. I actually just watched a pay-per-view the other night. So yes, I am a big fan of the UFC. So and when I had posted something about Scientology, I mentioned something about that somewhere, and they're like, oh, Mark is a big UFC, and so is the BFG. Okay, now we get on to one of our favorite Scientology spies, Eric Geisler. Eric Geisler. And this is from Kirsten Cantano at OSA Inn. This is sort of the fun thing about Eric, is he claims that he is not a spy, and he does not give information to Scientology that he gains through personal connections and business connections and other things. And here we have Kirsten detailing out all of the information that he's handing over to her, and he becomes a very, very frequent flyer in these documents, and he does provide a lion's share of the information that they have over the course of these documents. Eric Geisler lives in his own condo in Burbank with his fiancée, Wog. The girl that he was engaged to at the time was not a Scientologist, and so they call her a Wog. He has requested a COMEV, that's a committee of evidence, that's a internal Scientology investigation that usually doesn't end up in the investigated party's favor. on a regular. He has requested a ComEv and says he wants to get himself back in good standing, but mostly for family reasons. Mother is on OT7, and he has several other Scientologist family members. His brother is also an OT8, and his cousins, and all pretty much his entire family, I think, except for his half brother, were involved in Scientology, and any other ones that weren't, I think, had passed away. His reasoning for asking for a committee of evidence is that he says he was told he could route out and not be declared. He did blow and knows this was not okay, but asked for the review to look up his past production, that he did stay for months on the route out cycle and had the R factor that he would not be declared if he did this. But this R factor then changed. So again, this is a reality factor. It's such a weird thing. It's like basically saying, he was routing out, which is where you do a routing form, which is geared and designed to make you decide to not leave Scientology. And if you do, know that you will be completely screwed and it will be very hard for you to talk to your family again. He said they told him if he did that, then he wouldn't be declared as suppressive. Well, he did do all of that. And then when he was done, they said, okay, good, you can leave. Oh, by the way, you're declared as suppressive, and they declared him anyway, which is almost always what they do, because what they do when you're doing this routing form is they get you to confess to anything and everything they want you to confess to, that you're a horrible person, so that if you then turn around and try to expose them, they say, we have you on video confessing that you're a horrible person and that you did everything and we did nothing. And you'll hear this actually in an interview that Claire just did with Jeff Hawkins. I think it was in part 2 of the interviews that she did with Jeff Hawkins, where he was signing a confession and that he wouldn't sue them, and they videoed it. But if you were there when they were videoing it, just behind him off camera is a security guard there standing there like, you're not leaving until you sign this. And that is how these things take place. And that's what they do when you route out. Routing out is referring to this routing form that you follow to leave, and it's called routing out. Okay, so he did stay for months on the route out cycle. That just means the process of routing out, and had the R factor that he would not be declared if he did this. But this R factor then changed, and he was told that he would be declared anyway. So he left. He has been in regular comm with Kirsten, that just means in touch with, is out of town right now on business, but says he will get back in touch with her when he returns to work out, coming in for the ComEv. Okay, that's just weird the way they wrote that, but it might just be another typo. About 6 to 7 months ago, Eric started a company called Blank Animation and SFX Studio. Blank had previously approached Eric about going into business together, but he said no, claiming he had told Blank that Blank had been too off the deep end. Blank went off his lines, but got back in comm with him about 8 months ago and said he had chilled out and wanted to know if he was interested in doing some work together. At this time, Eric didn't have anything, but when he started this new company, he got in comm with Blank, and they agreed to go in as investors. Okay, and now we're going to go to the next page. And again, I don't know why this one's white now and the other one was black. It doesn't know. It says they're all black. Blank put in $10,000, but then started spending more money on his own credit cards without any agreement to fix up the studio. Blank was insisting on being a partner, which Eric and his WOG partners didn't want, to Blank's mental state. Finally, Eric's 2 WOG partners said that was it. That was 3 months ago. They consulted an attorney. Blank says they owe him $43,000. They are apparently now working out how to pay him off and fully sever the ties with him. Eric is working with the attorney to pay him off. They don't want to put the full $43,000. Blank says they owe, but don't want trouble from him either. Okay. The only reason that they're bringing all this up is because Eric is giving him all of this information. And again, you'll see this as a common sort of theme throughout a lot of this Eric information, is Eric tilts the information just slightly so that it's sort of like he's the one who's getting all this done and making money moves and doing all this. And it's really, it's a little bit of, he's kind of showing off how awesome he is to OSA and trying to give them some information. So sometimes the information is adjusted to fit the narrative of Eric is an awesome dude. And you'll see that throughout here. There's a few little facts that kind of get tweaked and you're like, what? That's not how that happened, but you'll see. Mark Headley is also involved in some equipment purchases and installations cycles related to blank, this other company that they were talking about a few months ago, but he is supposedly not involved anymore. Mark is closely connected to blank and is mad at Eric for getting him off of this other company. So there is less calm now between Mark and Eric as well. This is all made up by Eric. We were all talking to each other. We were all having dinners and going out to eat and going drinking, and we were all in constant connection with each other and talked to it. We lived like a few miles from each other, but he lived in Toluca Lake and I lived in Burbank, and we didn't know a lot of people. We'd been out for a year and we were always talking and hanging out and doing stuff, but Eric is trying to make out like he isn't, so he doesn't get himself in more trouble. He knows a lot of information for not really being in touch with me. Anyway, then it says, Mark is closely connected to blank and is mad at Eric for getting him off this company. So there is less communication now between Mark and Eric as well. However, Claire, from her real estate hat, that just means her real estate job. In Scientology, they call anything that you do as a job or a post position, they call it your hat. However, Claire, from her real estate hat, was helping Eric refinance his condo. Claire used to be a real estate agent when we first left Scientology, and she did very, very well for just a short period of time because she didn't like doing it. Eric told Kirsten in their last call that he knows doing anything with blank was a bad move and he regrets having done it. He said that he also doesn't know what the deal is with Mark, but he said that he was suspicious about how Mark is making his money because he lives well. But from the jobs Eric knows he's done, it's out of proportion. Eric claims he is cutting his lines entirely with blank and has little to do with Mark, as he doesn't talk about handling his scene with the church at all. Yeah, Eric, myself, this other guy, Matt, all of the people that we're talking about, none of us were doing anything to get back into Scientology because Scientology wanted us to do ridiculous things. The only person that was pretty much actively doing this was Eric and another girl named Suzette who wanted to speak with her mom. And both of their mothers were not in the Sea Org. The Matt and myself and all these other people that they end up talking about in here. A lot of us no longer had family members in Scientology at all, or the ones that were also not in the Sea Org. So it's all complicated, but Eric was one of the main people trying to sell info in exchange to be able to speak with his mother again. Okay, and then he says, Eric claims he's cutting his lines entirely with blank and has little to do with it with Mark, as he doesn't talk about handling with his scene with the church at all. Eric said he spoke with Claire 3 weeks ago as she was helping him do a refinancing on his house, and she mentioned that she wanted to handle her scene with the church. This was the last time she mentioned this to him. Okay, so that's all for Eric. Next, we have Suzette. Suzette was the sister of Shelley Miscavige, and Suzette left the Sea Organization just a few months after we had, and we were when we found her, when we moved back to Los Angeles and we found out where she was living with someone she was assigned to as a person that would keep track of her by OSA. And when we tracked her down, we knew that this person was an OSA spy, and we said, hey, we need to get you out of that house because that girl's just reporting anything and everything you do to OSA, to the Office of Special Affairs, Scientology's spy wing. Anyway, so then she moved into my guest house. So, and this leads to all kinds of excitement later on, and we'll get to that as we go here. Suzette, She lives in Burbank in the back house of Mark and Claire Headley. Now, when they found this out, this is sort of like the chairman of the board's wife is connected to somebody that lives in Mark Headley's house, in their guest house. This was a very giant flap. She lives in Burbank in the back house of Mark and Claire Headley. She has been in regular comm with Kirsten, has done her Step B write-up, and is in progress on her amends project from IJC. Again, Step B is the write-up that you do that says you're a bad person and Scientology's awesome and I want to get back into the club so I can talk to my family. And IJC is the International Justice Chief. She says she wants to be completed on her steps this year, but is having trouble with working out how to pay the freeloader debt. This is the thing that they want you to pay for all the courses you've done. Now, Suzette was in the base for a bunch of years, but her freeloader debt was $24,000, which is very, very low, which means she really didn't do any Scientology counseling or courses. Last week, she met with Kirsten and gave her a written request for her and Matt's declares to be reviewed, with her stated intention being to get their declares canceled or made probational so they can be back in good standing and in common with their family. When confronted with the data on BFG likely being Mark Headley, she said that she was at first surprised, but couldn't argue with the data as he is not moving on his steps and never speaks about them. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Fuck those guys. That was sort of my attitude at the time. Even though Claire was like, no, we can get... I was like, you are smoking it, man. They're never going to play nice. These guys are evil. And most of these people, I'll kind of recap what ended up happening when we get to the end of these documents. But a few of these people do end up getting back in touch with their parents. And then, and they don't want to do any Scientology. They just want to get in touch with their parents. And then as soon as they get there, they do all the steps, they pay their freeloader debt, they get the approval from the International Justice Chief. They finally, their parent is told, okay, you can talk to your kid again. And the parent then just hounds them constantly on when are they going to do their next Scientology course or counseling. And they never want to talk to them about anything else except when are they going to do their Scientology. And then they don't end up talking to the parents anymore because they're just hassling them about Scientology full time. She said that no matter what problems she might have had up lines, that means at the int base, OSA, but this is another crazy thing, OSA International is in Los Angeles and is lower on the command channels or the chart, the hierarchy of Scientology. So when OSA is reporting on us, they don't know anything that happens at the headquarters. They just know what they're told. So between what the people tell them and what they're told from the international base, they're kind of like, we don't know what really happened. And so she says, so no matter what problem she might have had up lines or wishing that she had not been declared, she would never attack the church, and said that if Mark is doing this, then he is obviously a real SP. Damn straight, Skippy. So she said she knows she has to move and would get this worked out fast, although she has not done it yet that we know of. There's going to be so many reports where they're like, why is she still there? And then there's reports from Mike saying, how is she still not moved? Like months later. They've known this for months that she lives there. And yeah, she still lives there. Okay, Adam Parcell. He lives near SFO, San Francisco, and works in real estate, where we set him up originally. Now, this is key. When I said that they had set Suzette up at this place and she was living with this OSA spy, they did the same thing for Adam Parcell. They did the same thing for Matt, this other guy. They place people in the care or to work for other Scientologists that are trying to get back in good standing or to get approved to do an OT level, these higher counseling levels, or they have to be spies for OSA in exchange to be able to talk to their family again or to get on to this next level. Or so Scientology is So they have people everywhere like, hey, we got another person that escaped from the Sea Org. We need them to work for you so we can kind of keep them in our clutches and keep our claws in them and know what they're up to. And so when they say where we set him up originally, that's exactly what they're talking about. He lives near San Francisco and works in real estate, where we set him up originally. He has done his step B, has been working on his amends, and saving money to pay off his freeloader debt. This guy was a real Scientology go-getter, if you know what I mean. And this is one of the guys that was sent to the RPF for joking around outside on the Free Winds cruise ship when David Miscavige walked out there and was mad about something. And Adam and some other guy were like, ho, 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 ho. And he was like, RPF. He has been in regular comm with Kirsten, asks regularly if there is anything he can do to help as part in getting through his steps. He is also the one who got Claire into real estate in the first place, and she is now working for the Southern California office at the company that he works for in the Bay Area, Bay One Reality. Per Kirsten's last call with Adam last week, Claire is now calling him 3 to 4 times a week for direction on various real estate cycles she is doing as she is very new at this. Yeah, this is pretty funny too, because Adam, I think they kind of had him keep this line with Claire so they could get information out of what Claire was up to. And I think in the first real estate house that Claire ever sold, she made more money than Adam in the entire year that he had been working on real estate. And then Claire was like, oh, this is lame. I don't want to do it anymore. Even though she was very successful at it, she just didn't enjoy it. So she decided to do something else. And during that time period, we kind of figured out that Adam was a little OSA spy. So he was told that Mark and Claire are not moving on their steps and that he needs to be cutting his lines with them and not keeping them going. He said that he would do this. He otherwise speaks occasionally with Matt and Suzette and told Suzette recently that he was intent on helping her find an investment type cycle to get her the money to pay off her debt this year. So they will even have ex-members that are trying to get back in the club hustle other ex-members to get back in the club just so they can talk to their families or, do whatever it is. I want to say that Adam Parcell's brother, Adam his father was a very famous Sea Org member that David Miscavige hated. And I think his name's something Parcell. And I think Parcell's brother was named James Parcell, and he was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles. And I think he also ended up escaping the Sea Org, but he might still be involved with Scientology. I don't know. I lost track of what he was up to. Anyway, so that's Adam Parcell, known OSA spy. Gary Blank. We do not know where he lives, but he has a 619 cell phone and now works at blank with blank. This was learned when the Burbank gathering occurred back in February, and Wolfie spoke with him briefly. He was not antagonistic, but didn't talk about doing his A to E either. Yeah, so we had a get-together. We had what we would call an SP party, and some of the SPs at the party were OSA spies. And so they did a whole write-up on this gathering that we had, and this guy was one of the guys. And we had pretty much the who's who of SPs that we were activating and getting busy out in all the craziness in Scientology. Okay, then the next one, and this is so crazy, Jeff Hawkins. One of the people that we were having these parties with was Jeff Hawkins. Jeff Hawkins, he is living in Santa Barbara and working at a local magazine there. These are all people who have escaped or left Scientology, and they know everything that they're up to. He has been involved in spreading N theta, that is interpolated theta, which means bad news. He has been involved in spreading N theta on the XSO message board for some months. That's an ex-Sea Org member message board that somebody started on the internet, and that was a lot of people there talking trash about Scientology. He saw Shelley another girl, Shelley Blank, Georgiana Blank, and Jimmy Blank at Christmas time, and told Georgiana at this time that he was done with Scientology. We also know that he visited Mark Headley's house in February when he was down in LA for a few days. He does not appear on Mark's comm lines, but he is noted, as we know he is enemy and his think. He is enemy in his think, and was stated by Chuck Beatty back in March as a person who might be willing to come out openly in the media on the point of violence by COB. That's David Miscavige, Scientology's boss baby, because I personally have witnessed David Miscavige beat on Jeff Hawkins, and it was one of the most crazy assaults, violent assaults that David Miscavige did on a Sea Org member that I've seen. I've seen a bunch, but this one was pretty memorable. Anyway, I'm sure Jeff's talked about it, and I think even we've talked about it on this channel in different places. So that's Jeff Hawkins. So some of these people are not spies that OSA covers, and some of them, they already know this guy is going to be a problem. He's enemy in his think. Wolfie Frank. Wolfie Frank is a little OSA spy. He lives in Reseda and works at a computer company. He has done Step B, is working on his amends project, and saving money for his freeloader debt. He has been in regular communication, is the one who wrote a KR on the XSO message board when he found it, and has reported on other data that he has gotten on his lines. Okay, now this is also very key what they're saying here, because when this guy sees things, he writes reports. And one of the things that OSA does, the Office of Special Affairs, Scientology's spy wing, is that if they get any information via covert means, like tapping the phones or getting the phone records or digging through your garbage or sending in spies, once they get some of that information, it's considered covert information, because they can't say how they got it because it was nefarious. So what they do is they get somebody to tell another person that same information that they got, and then that person, hoping that that person would write a knowledge report, and that makes the data overt because they got a report. It says right here, these guys are up to no good, but they spiked the deck. They made somebody tell him, and then he wrote it up, and then it gets overt, and then they can use it however they want. And you'll see later on in the documents, they do that, and they use this guy, Wolfie Frank, and he does exactly as they think he will, and he writes a report, and he starts making this covert information that they've got, overt information. Now it says chart attached, and then it has a little explosion emoji equals cut lines. Again, this is 2006. So here is this document. Now this is crazy, guys. So it has CH and MH in the middle. I don't know why they capitalize MH, M and then little h, and then they use lowercase for Claire, but then every other person besides Wolfie, they use uppercase. It's just like, okay, like you're going to take all the time to do this little art piece, but you can't have correct punctuation. Anyway, just saying. Okay, so it's got CH and MH in this circle in the middle. And this is a Scientology Zen diagram, or Venn diagram, a Scientology Venn diagram. It's got MH and CH in the middle. It's got Claire in her own little bubble. And then it's got all these lines, and they have little explosions on them. And so it's got Eric, Adam, and Suzette are all going to get blown up from the connections to CH and MH. But then MH is connected to Jeff. They can't blow that up. And then this blank person is also connected to Gil and Gab. That's Gil and Gab Llewellyn, who also turned out to be sort of information sources and resources for OSA for a bit, at least Gab. I don't know about the Gil guy. And then it's got blank guy up here. He's just on his own in this little island connected to this other blank guy. And then they've got me, MH, being disconnected from Matt. And then they've got a line that's kind of intermittent between Suzette and Wolfie because they're both maybe going to be intel sources. And then Adam as well. So these guys can all stay in touch with each other if they want. Maybe not Suzette and Wolfie, but Adam and Suzette are both working for us. But we got to cut all these other lines to all these other guys. And then we don't know what to do with MH and Jeff H. It looks like they're going to be connected. And we've been connected the entire time. And this is the funny part. We've pretty much been connected to all these other folks too, in some way or another, even after OSA was told that they had cut the line. Anyway, okay. I don't know if I'm going to do this. I might. There's another video that I did right before this. I think they'll probably end up together. So if you've just been watching this whole video and we covered 2 documents, then that's what I ended up doing, because the other one was pretty short. But yeah, that's 2 Scientology spy files for today. We hadn't done any for a while, so I thought we should just do 2. Hopefully this doesn't end up being too long. But this just gives you an extra little glimpse into Scientology and how they operate and how desperate they are to keep every single possible member they can keep their claws in, and how they need to control the ones that escape, because they spread this virus, this mind virus, among other Scientologists, that Scientology's up to no good, because that's what they're up to. And this, again, this is crazy, but this is in 2006, okay? It's 2023. These documents have been going back and forth between the Office of Special Affairs and International Management this whole time. And we've been doing stuff this whole time, and they've been doing videos and hate sites and Twitter trolls, and we've still been here getting more people out. And we've really codified it over the years, now that we have the Aftermath Foundation, which provides resources. A lot of the reasons why we know all these people and we were talking to all these people is because we were like workshopping and networking and trying to like, hey, what could you do? Hey, you could get a job here. I could get you a job there. Hey, why are you working at Burger King? You should be doing this. You can make $45 an hour. You're a skilled carpenter. You shouldn't be working at Burger King. Just things like this. We were helping people. This gal Suzette was working in farmers markets, making like $50 a day. She's a talented visual effects artist who could make $50 an hour at a minimum. And that is what she ended up doing, thanks to me. So, but they had her doing something that she shouldn't do, because they didn't want her to get involved with her old pals back from Golden Era. Anyway, so, yeah, they really try to protect their interests at the detriment of the ex-members. And another thing, when we said they place these ex-Sea Org members at different places, they actually, a lot of these employers that are working with Scientology are taking advantage of these ex-members, because you got to dig. These ex-members are making $45 a week. They're working 100 hours a week minimum. That's the schedule. That doesn't include staying up late or pulling all-nighters. The schedule's 100 hours. They're paying them $45 a week, okay? When they leave and a Scientology company says, we'll hire you and we're going to pay you $8 an hour, a Sea Org member is going to take that in a second. They're going to start doing the math. They're going to be like, I'm going to make hundreds of dollars a week. And they take advantage of them. And sometimes they work. There was one kid that left, and he was like doing safety classes for some weird Scientology company where they do like, it was like some kind of medical, like go to a company and do a medical emergency seminar or something. And they were paying this kid, I think they're paying him $50 a day, and he'd have to pay for gas money. And the job required that he drive sometimes, 100 miles a day, and he's got his own car and he's paying for gas. And then out of the $50 they're giving him, I was like, dude, you could be doing so much other work for so much more money. He was a photographer and he knew how to do visual effects. And I was just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. But they don't want him to do what he's good at and expand and live his life. They want to keep him like desperate and kind of like reliant on these people that are taking advantage of him. Anyway, Okay, that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the guys who watched to the very end. If you want to find out more about Scientology and all this craziness that happens, you could pick up a copy of my book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology. All of the copies that are sold on blownforgood.com are signed by my wife and myself. And otherwise, if you don't need a signature, you don't care about any of that, you can get them on Kindle or Audible or anywhere that digital books are sold. And yeah. That's it. Until next time.